Welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here again. This is my 9th season, going into my 9th season as the head coach. And I've been fortunate and grateful to have been the leader of BYU's program for this amount of time. A lot of learning, a lot of growth, a lot of fantastic experiences. Some very, very highs and some really low lows, but overall, just I would say a phenomenal experience. I would say that at this point, I would allude to kind of where we are now as base camp. I think 9 years or going into the 9th season has just established a really clear point of reference. Not a point of reference that deviates much on any given year. It's not too high in terms of wins and losses, and it's not too low in terms of wins and losses. It's among the nation's elite, but there's still more room to grow. And that is the intent of the program. Any players that I bring in, any changes I make organizationally will be simply to improve the program and to continue to reach goals that I think are obtainable at BYU. I think you all have a very clear idea of where we currently are, and I acknowledge there's still room to grow, and that's the intent that I have in going forward with our program. I thought today, just before I take questions, to give you some highlights and some base bullet points to maybe acknowledge to start from, and then we'll kind of shift into the recruiting focus from there. As I consider our program, I explain it to most around the country, whether I'm speaking for Nike at different clinics or whether I'm speaking to business leaders. The intent has really been to design the most complete program in the world. And I didn't say best program, I said the most complete. And that isn't specific to the standards that are asked of me here at BYU. And there are 4 specific criteria. The first is I'm supposed to develop each young man spiritually. That is my first job. That's what I'm asked to do. The second is to help them grow intellectually. That's the second thing I'm asked to do. These are in order, by the way, of how I've been asked. The third thing is to make sure I develop character of young people. The fourth then is to help them provide service to the world. Then after that, I was asked to be really, really good at football. And it was in that order. So as you look at the picture, and I'm very visual and slides help me understand, and sometimes I don't have the words to articulate what we're trying to do, but this is a faith-based institution. The Church of Jesus Christ owns this institution, and that will be predominantly who plays the game here. 98.5% of the entire population that come to BYU, which is almost a little over 33,000, are members of the LDS faith. So that means of the entire student body, only 1,500 are not members of the church. Our team represents about 90% members, about 10% non-members. So the program is run with the Spirit being at the core. Huge amount of service that we give through the Thursdays Hero program, and what I like about that, not for recognition, I like the feeling and the smiles that I see it gives to these little kids. Also, if you look at Kyle in that case, they makes them smile too, and that's fun. As we get to each week's end on Thursdays for the heroes to come in, and our team is all focused and getting very specific about their execution in front of a lot of people and who we're going to play, it's nice to pause just for a minute and look outside and help somebody else. Which, by the way, 70% of our team over the past 8 years, that means when we line up with 11 players, 8 of which on either side of the ball are either having returned from missions or getting ready to go. And that's what that looks like, as Devin Mahina shows that. Similar product in terms of smiles on faces as the upper right. And then I think it unifies our team, the bottom right, in a way that I don't think is obtainable without some stronger purpose. And I think the academies would be similar. When you watch the kids from Army and Navy and Air Force play and playing against them, they play really hard, but there's another component that adds to the uniqueness of that institution. And so in terms of trying to provide an overview, that's where I would start. The next, each year as well, because it's signing day, easy to forget about these guys, but there are 8 players that are back from missions. That shows a backdrop against where our team has served, but if you look at those names and faces, man, when I see them, some have played a semester before they went, some just went straight out on their missions, and you add those to an already strong class, it's really fun to see. Some have changed positions. Some leave as outside backers and come back as defensive linemen, like Sai Tautu, maybe 40 pounds heavier or 30 pounds heavier. Tuni Kanuch, player of the year in the state as a lineman. O-lineman or D-lineman, he'll play nose tackle for us based on need and losing Romney Funga. but you can make your assessment of each, but they were all good players and great fits to our program before, and after 2 years, they're even probably a stronger fit. But on the backdrop of the majority of our team, this is what they do. Again, over 70%, which is the highest ever in BYU's history. Okay, next. A couple things that, again, you've already researched very well. You already have articulated in columns and print, but just things that I think establish baseline or base camp. To be in the top 25 is the minimum expectation at BYU. It's not gauged by number of wins. You have to win, obviously, a lot to be in the top 25. So we're one of only 16 teams. If you just shrink it down to say the last 7 years, I've been the coach 8. The first one doesn't count because I didn't know what I was doing, as I've said many times. So if you go the last 7, we've been in the top 25, 5 of the last 7. That's hard to do. Otherwise, there'd be more people that are in that group. Each coaching staff spends hours recruiting, spends hours scheming, spends hours on professional visits, spends hours with their players in the weight room. Some sleep in their offices trying to do that. And we're one of a few, 16, that are able to have done that. I think it's attributed to the type of young men that we bring. The next point, we win a lot. I think that's because of the type of people we bring here. There's a Hall of Fame head coach here at BYU. The stadium's named after him. If we were able to continue on the same pace we are now, we'd be able to live up to his expectations. Whether that means Hall of Fame, whether that means national championship, I don't know any of that. But what I do know is he set the mark. I'm talking about Coach Edwards. And anyone that follows Coach Edwards should strive to do on the field and have similar success as to what he set the mark to be. And I measured against not only his legacy, but simply the standard on and off the field. And through 8 years, we're working in that direction. The next one, as you look at it, in the world of coaching, it's hard to win 10 games. It's hard to do. And not many people have done it. We're tied for 9th of the 124 teams just since I've been the coach that have been able to do that. And that to me is significant. Winning 8 is good. Winning 9 is good. 10, really good. Kind of from the conference talk, the good, better, best. When you get to win 10 or more, you're getting close to the best mark other than being national champion. And that is, it's difficult. But again, we're doing it consistently. And that to me, again, is a tribute to, number one, how we're bringing in young men, but also who we're bringing in. So I think it speaks to not only the process, but also the criteria and the standards of the institution. And last, which I really like, and this is significant from a bigger picture, and I like to address bigger picture things. When we went independent 2 years ago, we were selected to be partners of ESPN. ESPN is a business. Their primary goal is to earn revenue. They're the worldwide leader in sports. We have an exclusive contract with just us and them. We have a worldwide following. As long as we play well, that following continues to grow. They then benefit because a lot of people watch the games. Of the 124 Division I institutions that play football, only 8 have been seen more on national TV the past 2 years combined. A national audience is 100 plus million homes. So when you just consider this standard, which is ESPN only, that puts us in the top 9. When you add BYUtv to that, that changes the game completely. And no one has seen more than us. And so to benefit the sponsoring institution here and the message we have of the gospel through the game of football, that's a powerful combination. My job is to keep and help us play well enough with the right young men to keep people watching, and that also benefits those that might be seeking another message. I'm proud of this, Mark. I know I'm not supposed to be prideful, but it matters to me that when the regular season is over, we're still playing every year. I've been the coach 8 years. We played and have played postseason 8 of those years. The more significant number, though, of those 8, we've won 6. And for the first time in school's history, we've won 4 in a row. It's never happened before. The winning bowl percentage is the highest ever in the history of the school. So not only are we going, we're winning. And again, whether you choose to count my first year or not, I think we have to because I coached here, but I've learned so much from then, and that has really set a great standard for going forward. And I love finishing the season on a win and seeing the players get their pictures taken. By the way, we don't take a team picture any longer at the beginning of the season. We take it during bowl week because a lot of players come and go between the start of the season and the end. But now they're also taking pictures on the field after the game while they're still in their gear to celebrate. Not only are they going to bowl games, they're continuing BYU's legacy by winning those games, which is a higher standard than was displayed for quite a while. And that matters to our players, and it matters to me in terms of a fight for relevance in the world of college football. This is what our class looks like. Man, I can't predict, nor can I tell you with certainty what this class will end up doing. As I shared just a second ago with the Cougar Club, I've had players come in that have had as many stars as you can give them and have not played well or not stayed at BYU. I've had some that have come in as walk-ons and started both ways. I've had some that walked on, didn't know how to put on their pads, and will probably be a first-round draft choice, and they were just the MVP of the Senior Bowl for the South team. I've had players come that have had issues in their ecclesiastical life before they got here, that have fought through them and are still here. And just recently had one of our best players who chose to stay tell me he's going to make tell our football operations director he's going to make his kids come to BYU because he's had such a good experience. Not an easy experience, but a good experience. And through a lot of, ups and downs, but chose to stay when he could have gone and still play here. And so what this group will do, I don't know. And if anyone predicts they know, well, the last that I've heard, and my football operations director, Dwayne Busby, he's my link to the outside world. He sent me an article yesterday, maybe you've seen it already, in terms of the success rate of 5 stars. And if you've read it already, the way that I interpreted it, 1 of 4 ends up being truly a 5-star or an impact player at the school they go to. That means 3 of the 4 don't. I think it was 25% or 22% actually never stayed at the institution they went to as a 5-star. So while today can be measured, and a lot of times rankings come out based on number of stars, I will honestly tell you I've never looked at any of the services that have stars. I'm usually asked in this setting, but I don't know. What I'm interested is in recruiting stars for BYU. Not number of stars, just stars for this place. Good players, good people, and the right young men to be here. I've made mistakes in the past. There could be mistakes in here, but there's also our procedure and our policies have just produced all those statistics that I just showed you. And so I think there's some credibility lent to that. And I consider myself fortunate that this many kids want to come. So having said all that, is there anything else, Carrie? Okay, so I'll give you one more quick overview and take questions. I know I'm supposed to leave at least 15 minutes for that. So this is what the offensive players look like. As you look at the needs, you can clearly see the need was offensive line. This past year, we had 6 players on the offensive line that had career-ending injuries, 4 of which were in the 2 deep. And so what our original recruiting plan was, and what it ended up being, as the season went on, it changed dramatically. A lot of those players are junior college players, many of which were within the last 2 weeks as we found and sought and looked to get the right young men and the right players here. And so when you see the 8 players there, I believe, and you can again, I don't have the statistics memorized well enough yet. I think there's 4 high school players and 4 junior college players on the offensive front. You'll see a really nice young quarterback. He is really tough. He knows how to win football games and was passionate to be here. You'll like him when you watch him play. Already as part of we're lifting at 6 in the morning in terms of our lifting groups. He's integrated right in, and as a quarterback, you wouldn't know he's a quarterback. He trains really, really hard. Very good leader, and by the way, he's still technically a senior in high school. So he's here mid-year when he could have stayed, but he wanted to learn the offense and originally came because I didn't have a scholarship available mid-year. He came originally to pay his own way just to integrate and be here for spring. Even though he had a scholarship waiting in the fall, he chose to leave and come early even for that, which is a huge thing to me in terms of commitment, and it just so happened it worked out where we were able to put him on aid at that point. 2 receivers, both excellent athletes. Michael Davis, a 10.6, 700-meter guy, 21.4, should be able to really push the top end of a defense and stretch them to allow us a little bit more room for some of our possession receivers, and a fantastic athlete in Talon Shumway, who's currently playing on one of the best basketball teams in the program or in the nation. And if you watch him jump and catch the ball with his ball skills, etc., I really like the athleticism. And then if you go to our tight end, Moroni Lee is what I refer to him as, or just Mo. He is an exceptional athlete. And how we used Pitta and Harleen and that spot, this would be a similar type of player, or maybe a slightly more athletic player, to to be slotted kind of in that realm. And so I think we addressed our needs very well. We're already heavy at running backs, so we didn't go after any running backs. So it was a need-based approach, and that's what that looks like. Okay, from the defensive perspective, we're a 3-4 defense, and we play really, really good defense. And it starts with the guys up front, 300-pounders. And that helps us try to make people run around us or go over the top of us if they can't run at us. And so when you look at Meti, when you look at John Rahim, when you look at Kololo, all right at 300 pounds. 2 freshmen and 1 junior college player to add to an existing strong defensive front already. When you look at the linebackers, I love our backers' athleticism, grit, determination. There are those cut in the mold of Brandon Ogletree, which would be like Chasen Anderson, who is Coach Anderson's son, who's now at Wisconsin. That he and I have a very special relationship, and that he tries with everything that he has, and he loves football. When you look at Kaimana Nakua, I saw one game he played 6 different positions. He'll be an outside backer for us, similar to what you've seen from Spencer Hadley and Kyle Van Oy. You'll see Trajan Peely at a will linebacker spot, Riley Nautavai, who his motor runs 1,000,000 miles an hour, and then Nathan DeBikus, who might be the best athlete of all of them. And so a lot of athleticism at the linebacker, and again, we play 3-4 defense. That's where the athleticism has to be at that second level to help us play not only good run defense, but pass defense. And then in the secondary, 2 junior college corners. So we have Jordan Johnson back, which is a huge thing, but we lost Preston Hadley. Trenton Trammell is here already. Junior college player from San Francisco City College, already here and is an exceptional athlete and working very, very hard. And then Sam Lee at the same junior college that Coach Tujay just came from, so we'll have 3 exceptional corners in terms of talent and cover ability. Sam Lee, a returned missionary, Trenton Trammell, non-member, but again from one of the best junior college programs in the country that was passionate about living the standards. And then Dallin Levitt. His dad was a former player at BYU. Dallin is really, really tough. We've had him at camp. We know exactly what we're getting. He's hits you similar to what Craig Bills is like in a more compact package, so somewhere between Sorensen and Bills. Garrett England, we love his size, 6'4", about 190 from Skyline High School. Jordan Prater, we really like as well, kind of a versatile player from in-state that'll be able to help us. I'm sure I'm missing somebody. Who can see one that I've missed so far? Oh, Kujay. Yeah, Kujay from Kahuku High School. Great story with Kujay. I went to recruit Shiloh Te'o a number of years ago. This little kid is playing in the street, knows that I'm then in town. Word travels fast on the island. Knocks on the door, comes in, sits right by me. I'm doing a recruiting visit of someone else. The little kid comes in, sits by me, right next to me, and looks up at me like kind of like a puppy is just waiting to do something. And he asked if he can show me his highlight film. He's leading the Hukka for his little league team in Kahuku with his high voice and doing all the stuff. And he told me someday he'd play for me. And I think he was 13 at the time, and sure enough, he came to camp every year, just basically wore us out. But he wanted to be here so bad that, that started. And I didn't recruit him, so don't turn me into the NCAA. I was recruiting someone else, and a little kid off the street came in, but that was how I met Kujay. And so pretty cool story. So anyway, those are the offensive and defensive players. Mostly, again, need-based. There's nothing random about it. And Cody Hoffman was the one, by the way, that said he'd make every one of his kids come to BYU because of his experience here. And that's what Cody looks like. And I think he's having a great experience here. Not an easy experience here, but that's what I think our program can do. And that's what's helped us get to the point we are now. So with all that being said and that baseline or base camp being established, I'll be glad to take specific questions, and I'll answer them as best I can regarding individual players if you have them, or about anything else if you'd like to ask. Any questions?
Bronco, what was the general reaction of recruits to your staffing changes?
Yeah, at first a lot of uncertainty, as a lot of the committed players, and we have so many early commits here, the players that the young men that were most affected had been recruited by some of the staff members where I made changes. It was really hard. I went into each home and explained what I thought was the motive, and that simply was to try to continue to improve our program. Great men, great people, and great friends, and I really don't ever want to do it again. It was very difficult, and I tried to express that to each of the families, tried to express what I thought was still possible, ensure that we would bring great men and great coaches to replace those that I've already had. And then over time, that softened, and they were then engaged again and ready to move forward. With some, it took a little longer, but we didn't lose any. I take that back. We lost one player because I would say if I directed it directly to a coaching change, I would say we probably lost one through that process. But again, very difficult and not something that I want to do again.
Along the same lines, what impact did Robert and I have in the recruiting process?
Man, a lot. I think first the way I was able to speak about Coach and I, and the details of 2010 and the exit aren't known, but Coach and I was and has been the most fiercely loyal person to me professionally that I've ever worked with. And I realized that more and more just as I've been in the profession. And I also started acknowledging the results we had together. And that was basically top 25 offense and defense every year. And as I was able to express not only my personal feelings about Coach and I, but the success with tangible numbers to back it up, there was a relationship that the players knew that I was speaking to from personally and sincere about, and then there was a track record and history of past results that were credible. And that reaction then ended up being a pretty positive one over time. But I had to resolve concerns to begin with, and I expected that.
Bronco, you talked about this before, back in October when the change was made, but now you've gone through a few months with recruiting, with the new mission changes. How has that impacted the overall approach?
That's been a really good point. We pride ourselves because we are in the missionary business. That's part of one of the things we do. And it was never told to us in advance, but we all suspected at some point as a coaching staff that might happen. And so we have a workforce planning model that it can be up to 7 to 8 years in advance where we can show you the 2 deep and what it's going to look like. And so without that, we would have been affected a lot more. A few more junior college players were necessary this year, and our 2015 class is almost full because of the young men that were recruits for 13 that are now able to go earlier now to go. And so the kids that it will really affect are the 2015 young men that aren't missionaries. That makes it very difficult because that class, again, is getting full already because of the number of 13 kids moving forward. So a slight transition in junior college players, a little bit more. 2015 will be the most significant change, and then the cycle will be back to normal.
So just think over a 3-year period, pretty much minimize that impact?
I think so, and I think we've planned and appropriated well enough. And in fact, 2 young men that had planned to go first, we actually talked to them, and they actually, I'm not going to say volunteered, but saw benefits of, even though they're eligible to go, they saw the program need and said, you know what, I'd like to play a semester first. And so a little bit of that, hardly ever do we influence when young men go. We just presented to 2 young men, this is what the situation is. It is completely your choice, and they kind of helped us a little bit in that case. So some of those unique things maybe in year 1, probably not anymore going forward.
Bronco, was Brandon given an opportunity to stay on the staff, or was he fired outright?
The entire staff, every single member, other than Coach Reynolds, and his announcement came at the end of the bowl game, but every other staff member was simply asked to reapply and that I was going to start from scratch. And so gave every one of our coaches a chance to interview and everyone a chance to express what they would like to do and what position I possibly saw them in. And then maybe up to 10 days ago is finally when I think both Coach Doman and I thought that this is probably the time for him to step down. And so that was a longer process with him.
How much authority did Coach and I have in that reapplying?
Coach and I was one of the voices. I had complete authority. And so I included other staff members in kind of our selection process or reselection process. And Coach and I was able to give input, but ultimately I have complete responsibility for any changes that were made.
Is that the same process you went through after the 2010 season?
Similar, but this was much more extensive in terms of re-interviews, the depth of the interviews, the number of people on my staff that were involved, the number of things that were considered against the standards and going forward. So different time, a lot more scrutiny, a lot more depth, and a lot more sincerity to give everyone a chance to stay, and possibly different combinations. Sometimes you can have fantastic people that you love and care about, and collectively it doesn't produce the most elite organization. And so I was still looking at every option to try to have as many be here as possible.
Just along those lines, plans as far as the length of time that it's taken? Is that a concern going forward?
No, it's actually designed that way. With this significant of a choice, I wasn't in a hurry with recruiting going the way it was, and basically a lot of it shifting to me, moving into the different homes. I thought it was going to be very difficult to do both at the same time, and so we'll focus on the staffing issues right again starting on Monday.
Bronco, with only one quarterback in this class, what does that say about your depth coming back, in particular Taysom Hill possibly being a 3-year starter?
I love our existing quarterbacks, and I'm not today crowning Taysom Hill as the starter, but he brings a lot of unique skills. I love Ammon Olsen, who was our scout team quarterback this year. If you were to talk to the defensive players and say, who do they like? They love Taysom, but they don't discount Ammon as he made them better in every case this year. Jason Munz is working really, really hard and organizing past Skelly on his own and different things now, and he's kind of grandfathered in. You know, players are listening to him, and he's spent a lot of time and hasn't had much opportunity, and I like that about him. So there'll be others that you'll see emerge, but those are the names that will probably be asked about most, and I'm not willing to crown any of them the heir apparent at this point, but I'm excited that we have options. Yes?
What are you going to do with the kicking game? You got to find a punter, and then with field goals and how that
Yeah,
started last year.
you got suggestions?
Well, I didn't see any kickers coming in, so I was wondering.
Yeah, Justin Sorensen is back as our field goal kicker, our place kicker, and our kickoff. We'll continue to look as an organization how best to develop kickers. And I think there's organizational elements that can improve. I also think that there are simply focus and development issues that can improve. There's always a number of answers. I take responsibility first, and I think we can design things better to help him be more effective. And then from a punting perspective, we actually have a punter that's in our program that was a walk-on, Scott Ariano, who we really like. Again, I kind of award punters based on merit, like I award other scholarships. They have to be in the 2 deep through a fall and have over a 3.0 grade point average to be considered. And so his medal will be tested coming up. But I'm fairly confident, and we have another player back from a mission, Jordan Miller, who was kicking well or punting well nicely before he left. And so currently there's not a scholarship as of today for a punter, so most likely there'll be a walk-on trying to earn one for this next season, if I were answering today.
Another large haul of local players. Can you just talk about how the talent in this state has grown even since you've taken over?
I think the talent is growing. A lot of times I'm questioned as maybe the low-hanging fruit approach because kids are close. The most LDS people in the world live here. And this institution is owned by the church, so we start here. About a third of our class each year will come from in-state. We start there first. We won't go out of state until we've blanketed in-state. I think it's good for the families. I think it's good for the young men. I think it's good for our program. And we don't want to miss on anyone in-state that's qualified to be at BYU. And again, it's roughly a third of each class is coming from our state. But I also think not only are they more accessible and closer, but the football's better. And our high school coaches are doing a really nice job. And there's quite an influx of players from out of state actually moving into state, which is helpful to us as well.
Bronco, you made a coaching hire that then the coach decided to return to his other school.
Yes.
Can you talk about the Aaron Roderick situation?
Yeah, I'll talk about it maybe as delicately as I can. I think the best way to say it is just it was the best fit. If I were just to say bluntly and honestly, Aaron currently will fit better at Utah than at BYU. And sometimes it takes a while for that to sort out, and sometimes even when a decision is made, there's still more that has to be sought out or vetted a little bit, and it was completely Aaron's decision, and I think he's a great person and a really good coach. That's why I went after him. Ultimately, for this time, he was more comfortable at the University of Utah.
Bronco, can you continue with the independent schedule and
Yeah.
going all over the country?
Yeah.
How big of a difference are you noticing just recruiting out of state in that sense, just because you have been all over the country for some of these
Well,
games?
first of all, I would say I'm appreciative of the support I've received from our athletic director. We've worked hard on our schedule, and I believe that the 2013 schedule is the most difficult schedule BYU's ever played. And I'd be willing to have anyone research that and come up with another one that appeared to be more difficult, but that is our intent. I have the most to lose by any of that, by the way. But I want our program to get better, and I think part of getting better is playing the best teams on the biggest stages in front of the most people, and a lot of times on the road. But there are benefits to it. Again, playing in front of more people on the biggest stages against better people and the exposure you get. as long as I keep bringing the right young men and have a program that can handle it and continue to have success at not only the same rate we are, but higher. So yeah, there is risk, but I think it's necessary to improve the program, and I don't really intend to be safe about it. And so that's the direction. What you've seen from 13, you'll see it similar in 14, 15, 16. That's probably as far as I could speak to, as maybe 15 and 16 are about halfway done, Tom? Not quite. But we're not having a shortage of finding teams to play. The issue is having enough balance at the end of the season still. And we're getting better at that from what I've seen already.
How is that impacting the recruiting, though, also going around?
Yeah, to your question, just more exposure. We're being contacted by more, I think that the popular word is socially conservative kids. One young man on his recruiting visit this past weekend, I think we were his 5th visit, he said we're the only visit he had where he didn't ever see alcohol. Kids like that want to be here, and they're refreshed, and they don't think there's a place that's like that. And we tell them, and they don't believe it until they come, and then they're smiling when they leave because we told them the truth. And that was fun for me to hear. We're not perfect, but those kids are being drawn to because we're being seen more broadly, and those values are being talked about, and there's more interest. Doesn't mean they all come, but we're getting farther in the process than we had been before.
Bronco,
Yep.
Who's acted as the recruiting coordinator? Or is
Great question. Patrick Hickman, who's our high school relations director, hasn't been able to, by rule, act as the recruiting coordinator, but has done so much legwork behind the scenes of helping with travel and new coaches getting organized, et cetera. But we haven't put anyone in place to do that yet. And with the NCAA changes, if you haven't been following the rules, now non-coaching staff members can evaluate film, can make phone calls, can text recruits, et cetera. So what you're going to start seeing is the development of player personnel departments, which used to be the recruiting coordinator. One of us had to do 2 jobs. You're going to see an entire, like the NFL, an entire department devoted nothing to assessing talent and communicating with prospects, with the intent being, my belief is the intent being to cause more of a divide between those that have resources and those that don't. And that's the way the money is kind of having people move currently, and that will be a huge factor. So I intend to add a person in that position. We've just got it approved shortly after I fill in our coaching staff.
Bronco, you mentioned at the end of the season that defensive line, finding immediate help there was a concern. How'd you do in addressing that?
I would say okay. I would have preferred one more junior college player if I had my ideal, but we went through all the best ones, and none were great fits. Some great on the field, but again, it has to be all of it here. And so I would have liked one more if I were to say ideally.
Are you expecting Ethan Monomaliuna back?
Yeah, that's a good point. Ethan is back. He's been cleared. He's training with the team, and so that's huge for us. And so biggest question at nose tackle is we have Bronson Kafusi back at one end. We'll have Ethan at the other. And then you look at younger players, Kololo as a JC and Tuni Kanucha back off a mission. You look at those type of guys at the nose spot. So there's bodies. They're just unproven.
Bronco, you spoke a second ago about that socially conservative recruit. In particular, Coach Anderson's son would have had some different options, yet chose this unique program.
Man, that's been one of the coolest stories, and probably best if you talk to Coach Anderson about that. But he and I, once he left the University of Utah, our relationship has really become strong, and a lot of respect for each other's programs. And maybe we didn't know each other very well. You know, you get affiliated with an institution and you accept stereotypes. It's funny, once you change schools, we get along really well. And he called me last night thanking me for the chance for his boy to come, and I love chasing that. He came on a junior day 2 years ago, and even though his hair was long and all that, when he plays, he flies around and he loves BYU for what it is, and that is really fun for me. And so I have extra responsibility to parents of those type of kids that to make sure they make it, and I like that. And I for Stacy and Gary both, the parents, it's been really fun to go through that process and very unique for both sides to be doing that.
Bronco, what are your feelings on Bronson Kafusi playing on the basketball team?
Yeah, great as long as he doesn't get hurt. Bronson's really good and very valuable to our team. And when he first approached me with it, I just simply educated him what the risk was, what the development path would be now that he's home from a mission, as his goal is to go on and play professional football, how every offseason is so important, the conditioning with weights, etc. Dave Rose and I talked for a long time, and probably any other year, Dave wouldn't have needed him. We lost 2 big men prior to the season or along the way, and Bronson, it's turned out to be good for the basketball team. And to this point, because he's still healthy and his weight's holding, it's good for us. Whether it will be long-term, I would doubt it. But for this point, it's okay. And I wouldn't say this would be the precedent set in going forward. This is more of the exception. Okay, one more? Dick?
Bronco, what did you see in the quarterback Green early on, and how did that process of evaluating him go?
Actually, Brandon was what saw it, evaluated him first, and Brandon's been very good at evaluating quarterbacks. And he saw Billy not only in person, but just his interactions, and we're so limited with what we can say, et cetera, but just the team kept winning. And he wasn't, it didn't seem like he was always seeking the additional attention. He wanted to be one of the team, but he's the leader rather than the team. And he made every critical throw at all the critical times, and his team just kept winning and winning and winning. But I liked his kind of understated, workman-like approach. And as Brandon passed on all that information, man, I was really glad. And he had a huge decision to make because he's planning, again, coming mid-year, and now the strongest link he had to the program is we're going through transition. And so amazing that it didn't affect him as much as it did. And it speaks a lot to his roots, why he came, and the belief in our program and what would be accomplishable. And so I think that's the best way I could answer it. I appreciate your questions. Hopefully I've answered as many as give you enough information, and thanks.